everybody, my name is Luke Marr and this is Haute Le Mode, and today on Haute Le Mode we are going to be getting into the history of one of the most famous French fashion brands in the world, Louis Vuitton. Now when you think of luxury fashion and leather goods, there are quite a few brands you may think of, but you can't deny that Louis Vuitton is at the top of the list. The French luxury brand started as exclusively a leather goods company when founder Louis Vuitton, yes, he was an actual person, founded the company in the mid-1800s, and from there it has steamrolled its way to the top with the help of luxury magnate Bernard Arnault. While most know LV for its monogram, the brand has a history of luxury, evolution, greed, and power that's worth discussing. Now, Louis Vuitton was born on August 4th, 1821 in Ensues, France, close to the Swiss border. His mother was a hat maker and his father was a farmer, but both died when he was quite young. He didn't get along with his stepmother and decided he would travel to Paris to find working opportunities by foot at the age of 13. It must have been a long walk because he didn't arrive in the City of Lights till 1837 at the age of 16. Paris was in the middle of the Industrial Revolution under Louis-Philippe I, and Vuitton found a job under the trunk maker Monsieur Maréchal. Trunks were common at this point in time for wealthy Europeans, as they often traveled by horse and carriage and needed a way to store their belongings. Trunks needed to be sturdy, as they had to keep belongings safe, but also be able to endure long treks across multiple countries with non-paved roads. Louis had become quite well known in the upper echelons of Parisian society, and even had the Empress Eugenie, wife of Emperor Napoleon III and nephew of the shorter Napoleon I, patron him. She made Louis her official trunk maker and packer in 1852 or 1853, we're not super sure. Often, when royalty purchases items from specific vendors, their court follows, meaning not only was Eugenie spending good money, but her courtiers were also patroning Louis as well. Eventually, Louis left Maréchal and opened his own shop in 1854, probably with the monetary help of his clients. So he set up a shop at Fort Rue de Capucine, and he also happened to get married to a then 17-year-old Clémence Émilie Prariot. Louis had learned quite a lot at Maréchal, as most trunks were custom-made due to different kinds of carriage designs, and clients usually utilizing high-end trunks for storage at their homes as well. At this point, the steamboat had been invented, and more people were traveling using railroads instead of the then archaic horse-drawn carriages. In 1857, Clémence Amélie and Louis had their only child, Georges Vuitton, and a year later, Louis invented his signature creation, the Louis Vuitton steamer trunk. Now, most steamer trunks, given the name steamer because steamboats and locomotives were popular, had rounded tops as a way for water to roll off of them in order to stop damages. But Louis' trunk had a flat top for stackable storage and was made of a waterproof canvas, as opposed to the status quo leather. The canvas was given the name Trianon, maybe in reference to the Grand and Petit Trianon, which were the small hamlets erected in the Garden of Versailles, and maybe as a marketing tactic to associate the then unknown textile with luxury and royalty. The brand became even more successful due to the idea, while Louis and his family set up an atelier in Asnières, which is still in use to this day and is a little bit outside of Paris. The brand's popularity continued to explode until the start of the Franco-Prussian War. Now, Napoleon III didn't want Prussia, a kingdom within the German Empire, to get control of the then monarchless Spain, and the countries began to battle. Prussia was efficient and eventually beat their way into Paris, where they lay siege to the city for over 4 months, stranding the Vuittons in Paris. After getting back to the atelier in Asnières, they discovered the studio had been destroyed, his tools stolen, and no staff in sight. Louis quickly built a new shop at 1 Rue Scribe, and in 1872 debuted a new style of beige trunks with red stripes. Eventually, business picked back up, and his son Georges started to become instrumental in the business, even developing a signature lock in 1886. LV trunks were a sign of wealth and were attractive to thieves, so George's single lock system with two spring buckles made it physically impossible to pick, and it was dubbed the tumbler lock. The lock worked so well that George eventually challenged the legendary escape artist Harry Houdini to try and escape from it, although he didn't take the challenge. But eventually George patented the design, and it's still in use to this day. In 1888, the now iconic damier motif was developed as a way to distinguish Louis Vuitton trunks from copycats. But even the style was a popular knockoff. The French word damier actually translates to checkerboard, which explains the alternating colored squares. But on February 27th, 1892, Louis Vuitton passed away, and the brand came under the control of his son George, and would continue on. George now was in the driver's seat of Louis Vuitton, and a year after his father's passing in 1893, he brought Louis Vuitton products to the Chicago World's Fair, which prompted the idea that George planned to take the company fully global, after the brand had courted customers in France, the UK, and Japan, just to name a few. 4 years after his father's death, George Vuitton decided to shake up the brand once more by introducing the most indisputable signature of the brand, the Louis Vuitton monogram. Georges was trying to still outsmart counterfeiters, and many assumed he also wanted to pay homage to his father and build his legacy into some aspect of the branding, which is why we see the intertwined LV. But the shapes are a bit more shrouded in mystery. Many believe they are flowers. Some say Georges was inspired by the architecture of the atelier and family home. Others say it was the tiles in the family kitchen. And then there are those that believe it was inspired by Europe's obsession with Japanese art and aesthetics during the Victorian era, commonly called Japonisme. The monogram, whatever the inspiration, is one of the most powerful branding tools the world has ever seen, and has helped to push Louis Vuitton to represent luxury and become a household name. As automobiles started to become more commonplace for the wealthy, Georges became fixated on how to create trunks that worked perfectly for automobiles, even going as far to having a car created so that it would fit his custom LV car trunks.
Get in, loser, we're going shopping.
An ad from 1898 notes there were London and Paris shops, as well as trunks for men and women, and even hat trunks too. The first non-trunk bag the brand introduced came in 1901 in the form of the steamer bag. Note the steam reference here, as well as the fact that it came in simple canvas and leather. The bag was supposedly inspired by American mail bags, which makes sense as Georges had gone on a widespread tour of America. Another signature bag was introduced in 1930, one that still holds popularity today, which is the keep-all bag. Now, it was actually introduced by Georges' son Gaston, as Gaston understood that travel needs had changed once again in the new century. People were traveling longer distances and no longer wanted large, heavy, and hard trunks, but something softer and a bit more malleable. In 1930, we also saw the invention of another staple in the Speedy bag, which was originally named the Express bag. In 1934, another signature bag was debuted by Gaston, originally called the Squire bag, but we now know it as the Alma. The bag had a flat bottom, two handles, and a rounded top, and had been originally created for Gabrielle Coco Chanel in 1925, but she later gave her blessing for the bag to be sold to a wider audience. Georges died in 1936, leaving the legacy to his sons Gaston, Jean, Pierre, and Marcel. Now, when we get into World War II, the story of Louis Vuitton takes a very dark turn. Gaston, now in control of LV, was a collaborator with the Vichy regime, which was the puppet government under the control of Nazi Germany. According to documents obtained by Stephanie Bonvincini, author of Louis Vuitton, A French Saga, Gaston told his son Henri to forge links with the Vichy regime to keep the business going. Now, the Vuittons weren't the only ones, as Coco Chanel was sleeping with a Nazi and eventually went on intelligence missions for the Germans. Elsa Schiaparelli had close ties to multiple people in the Vichy government, and while not a collaborator, Cristobal Balenciaga didn't even seem to care that the war was happening.
but I'm less tired.
Paris was depressing and awful during the German occupation, but that doesn't call for collaboration with the Nazis. Lucien Lelong, whom both Pierre Balmain and Christian Dior worked under, actively stopped haute couture from being shipped to Berlin as the Germans wanted control of it. So there were things that could have been done in protest while ensuring survival of a company. Louis Vuitton, the company, was allowed to remain open during the war, and Henri became decorated by the Vichy regime. But it has no doubt left a permanent stain on the Louis Vuitton monogram. A representative from Louis Vuitton has said, quote, "We don't deny the facts, but regrettably the author has exaggerated the Vichy episode," speaking on the Louis Vuitton A French Saga book. The other important thing to note, and something we will discuss in a bit, is that the Vuitton family no longer has control over Louis Vuitton as a company. And while the brand's parent company, LVMH, no doubt, has issues of their own to address, it would be hard to blame the current owner, Bernard Arnault, for Gaston and Henri's Nazi sympathies, although I understand if people want to. After the war, Louis Vuitton continued on building itself up while instituting small changes like making its monogram canvas more supple in 1959. It introduced the Papillon bag in 1966, expanded its reach into the Asian market in the early 1980s, and introduced the Epi leather in 1985. The Epi leather is one with the ridges, but in French, Epi means a tuft, almost like a tuft of hair sticking up, which I probably have right now, which might play into its very textured appearance. In 1977, Henri Vuitton thankfully stepped down, and his brother-in-law, Henri Rassamier, was asked to take over the business. In 1987, the Louis Vuitton company made a decision that would turn it from just the face of French luxury to the face of one of the largest conglomerates of the world, as well as mark the beginning of its end as a family-owned business. Rassamier was a businessman who had married Odile Vuitton, Louis Vuitton's great-granddaughter, and planned to take the company even more global. Louis Vuitton decided to merge itself with Moet Hennessy, two leading alcoholic beverage companies that had previously merged. This turned Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy into the most powerful luxury leather good conglomerate the world had seen thus far, and also made the newborn LVMH the sixth largest company in France. But 3 years later, before this, a young Bernard Arnault had acquired the French luxury ready-to-wear line, Christian Dior, and would soon turn his attention to controlling LVMH, as it had ownership of Dior's perfume licenses, which is a major player in the brand's profits. Bernard Arnault seemingly wanted control of the entirety of the Christian Dior brand, and in 1987, there was infighting between Louis Vuitton's Henri Rassamier and Moet's CEO Alain Chevalier, and Rassamier brought Arnault in to invest, assuming Arnault would help him oust Moet's CEO. Well, they were successful in that effort, but quickly Arnault turned on Rassamier and ousted him from the board of directors too, leading Bernard Arnault to assume control of LVMH. The man is terrifying. In 1997, Bernard Arnault noticed he was losing ground to rivals Prada and Gucci Group, as they'd both gotten into the world of ready-to-wear with Miuccia Prada and Tom Ford respectively. So a then young Marc Jacobs, American fashion wildchild, entered the mix at Vuitton. His debut collection was titled Hidden Luxury, and was a rather minimal range of tops, sweaters, jackets, and button-downs paired with skirts. This autumn-winter 1998 collection was inspired by Louis Vuitton's Trianon grey canvas trunk, which is why we see such muted colors, and the idea of luxury was meant to be, well, hidden. Only one white embossed messenger bag opened the show, and left the rest of the collection through long cashmere sweaters and tiny LV insignias on buttons to whisper the idea of grandeur. From what we know, Bernard Arnault was a bit shocked by it, seeing how the LV monogram was the bread and butter of the brand. But spring-summer 1999 was when the real party started. The collection was quite minimal, debuting ponchos, one-pieces, bikinis, and some tailoring, but a new take on the LV monogram was debuted on the runway. The vernis. Vernis in French means a varnish, and is a coated leather that is shiny and reflects like a gloss would. Marc showed little hip bags in pink and gray, a small monogram bucket bag, fanny packs, and backpacks as well. The vernis got continual use on Marc's runway into the 2000s, and still are in use today. His spring-summer 2001 show was a collaboration with the stylist and artist Steven Sprouse, which debuted Louis Vuitton's graffitied monogram. monogram. Marc had initially been inspired by Serge Gainsbourg's LV trunk that had been painted black, and remembered that Sprouse's graffiti and had been a hit during New York's downtown cultural movement in the 1980s. So neon colors writing out Louis Vuitton Paris was described by Marc himself as, quote, disrespectful but also respectful at the same time. The style was a hit and must have inspired Marc to continue to deface the monogram as time went on. The Spring-Summer 2003 collection was another collection that elevated Vuitton's cultural cachet, as Marc collaborated with the Japanese artist Takashi Murakami. 3 new monogram styles were debuted, the first being the, quote, multicolor monogram, which was a rainbow take on LV logos and florals on black and white backgrounds. Then came the I Love, which replaced the circular LV floral with one of Murakami's signature cartoon eyes, while keeping the rainbow effect, and Cherry Blossom took the classic LV monogram in white and brown and added cartoon cherry blossoms in pinks with Murakami's signature flower face in the center. The multicolor are still popular with the vintage high fashion crowd, but the other two no doubt helped to bring Murakami's work to a more mainstream Western audience, and I'm sure helped to make the brand quite a bit of money. Jacobs, through his time at Vuitton, had paid homage to not only great artists, but great cinematographers as well. One being Alfred Hitchcock, but for his Spring-Summer 2005 collection, he wanted to look at, quote, Hollywood glamour. The actress Christina Ricci opened the show before taking her seat, while the collection also showcased a new take on the monogram by Takashi Murakami, which showcased cherries rather than cherry blossoms. Marc then modernized LV even further by putting the luxurious monogram utilized by the rich, famous, and royal onto a fabric associated with workwear and everyday use. Denim. Denim is inherently French. Even the name denim refers to its place of origin, Nîmes in southern France. But the fabric became quintessentially American due to its use by those looking to amass wealth during the American gold rush, and sort of came full circle as an American in Paris turned the fabric into a symbol of luxury by washing the LV monogram on top of it. Marc worked with the artist Richard Prince to bring some of his art to life in garment form for the Spring-Summer 2008 collection. There were nurses whose caps spelled out Louis Vuitton and embroidered face masks that wouldn't be so helpful in a real-life scenario, and there was even an LV handheld trunk that played SpongeBob SquarePants on 4 LED screens. We dissected the whole collection in a previous video if you want to learn more, so click somewhere. The beginning of the 2010s is when Marc's show sets began to get exceedingly grand, with Autumn-Winter 2010 having the models walk around a beautifully and fully functioning fountain. Autumn-Winter 2011 saw them arrive in grand cage elevators with attendants. Spring-Summer 2012 had a stark white spinning carousel with the models delicately sat on their steeds, and Autumn-Winter 2012 brought around the Louis Vuitton Express, a working train pulling into the station with models actually sitting in the carriages. In 2012, Jacobs helped roll out another artist collaboration in the Yayoi Kusama and LV collection. Kusama, the Japanese artist known for her colorful polka dots, imprinted her signature motif on clothing, shoes, glasses, and bags like the keepall and papillon. The Spring-Summer 2013 collection utilized a colorful damier motif on escalators, and the catwalk that matched the matching models as they strolled in 2 by 2. It was a simple homage to one of the brand's oldest motifs, but added a colorful, punchy, and mod aesthetic that all rolled into Marc's wonderful ability to reference multiple decades at once. Marc's finale collection for the House of Vuitton after 16 long years was an ode to his time there. The collection was almost all black, maybe a sign of mourning, but referenced iconic moments from Marc's time at Louis Vuitton, like the Steven Sprouse graffiti bodysuits, a large black fountain, caged elevators, a black carousel, among other nods. The collection was full of shimmery embroideries, tailoring transparent fabrics, Americana references like sports uniforms, leathers, and denims. In 2013, Nicolas Ghesquière was appointed as the new creative director of women's and accessories at Louis Vuitton, and would be working opposite Kim Jones, menswear director who was appointed in 2011. Ghesquière, pronounced key heir, had reinvented the house of Balenciaga to make its ready-to-wear more than bearable to see. His debut Autumn-Winter 2014 collection for Louis Vuitton had a 1960s and 70s flair with his signature mixing and mashing and oddball styling. The collection also debuted his first new bag for the house titled the Petite Malle, which translates to small trunk. And with its narrow rectangular shape, easy to spot monogram, and black leather piping, it instantly turned the house's bulky specialty into a handheld bag. The Cruise 2015 collection gave us another classic bag in the LV twist, with a quite ingenious use of the L and V turning to either open or close the bag. Spring-Summer 2016 helped to showcase Ghesquière's love of futurism and technology as it took on a video game fantasy atmosphere. Like if Louis Vuitton made a game about space pirates that dressed very, very interestingly. Fernanda Lee opened the show with bright pink hair and a matching jacket, and was probably used in direct reference to Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII, as Lightning was eventually decked out in looks and bags from the collection. Autumn-Winter 2016 gave us the Star Trail ankle boot. Cruise 2017 gave us a look at the Bush Chapeau bag. Spring-Summer 2018 shone brightly with references to 18th century French court dress, matched with the new Arclight sneakers. For Fall 2017, menswear designer Kim Jones debuted his highly coveted collaboration with Supreme, taking the classic LV monogram and dyeing it red and white with the Supreme box logo joining the heritage symbols. Supreme is a skatewear brand known for its countless collaborations, but getting the famous red Supreme logo on epi leather and handheld trunks was a coup for both brands. Kim eventually left and said goodbye with Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss on either arm during his Fall 2018 show, and this led to the appointment of Virgil Abloh, aka Controvirgil, as I like to call him. Virgil Abloh's debut collection, Spring-Summer 2019, was inspired by The Wizard of Oz, and showcased modern tailoring with accessories like the now famous harnesses and new takes on the classic keep-all. There were stark white versions and PVC versions that were transparent, which came in red, green, and holographic with chains attached. He even made a men's version of the Petite Malle titled the Soft Trunk bag. His Fall 2020 menswear collection reinforced his tailoring and gave us cloud motifs that take on the classic LV monogram, and he recycled some looks from Fall 2020 in his Spring 2021 collection. Ghesquière's Fall 2020 collection opened the show with a simple keep-all bag tucked under the model's shoulder as a way to ingrain Louis Vuitton's heritage into the show. And I think that's a good place to leave off with this video. Louis Vuitton's history is one full of innovation, evolution, secrecy, and domination. Who would have ever thought a 16-year-old boy could have turned an apprenticeship into a luxury good empire, and helped to facilitate one of the most known branding symbols in the world? And well, what will the future hold for Louis Vuitton? I don't know, but we're gonna keep watching to find out. So that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and if there are any other brands you'd like me to do these history videos for, let me know. I'm working on a few. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and TTYL.